And so, Lucas, are you able to maybe share an example of how your company has developed a more efficient component or system, and maybe what prompted doing so, and what were some of the results that were achieved from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the projects that we have ongoing right now is the use of bio-based resins. So it's a replacement of traditional plastic resins to insert a bio-based material. And the idea is when you do the injection molding process to create a product, there is a certain amount of emissions that are reduced each time, both in the energy that's used to create that product, but also in the emissions that are emitted from that process itself. And what we found is that using bio-based materials, we've actually achieved like a 70% reduction in carbon emissions in the manufacturing process itself. It's actually amazing, and so we've started to roll out these new products from a sustainability aspect, and put a carbon footprint label on our products as well to say, hey, this is how much carbon that we consume to create this product. So we're starting to let customers know what it took to create a product, and that's one big thing. If I could give another example, another big thing that we focus on is the system itself. And for us, the materials that are used to transmit electricity from one thing to another are the most critical in the design. So the tolerances, the material selection are paramount to a more sustainable design. So we spend a lot of energy and research into the right material selection and manufacturing processes to have that be the most effective in its application and in its use. We designed, for example, a connector for an application, a high power application, and we received because of this design, this contact design, we had a 35% reduction in resistance, meaning the amount of power you're getting out of this connected system was significantly more efficient. And it provided real dollar savings and helped our customers meet real goals that they were looking to achieve at a scale that reached top levels of management at this large customer. So these are things that we spend a lot of time on, both on the manufacturing process, and I also mentioned supply chain, and then in the design as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Andreas, how about you? Do you have an example you could share of how Danfoss has developed, a more efficient component system?
Yeah, and I have to say it's an easy catch because energy efficient products is in our DNA from especially Danfoss Power Solutions here. Since decades. So when I joined 17 years ago, we also talked about the energy efficiency of our products, and what can you do with that. And that time we focused a little bit more on total cost of ownership, and now we are including the CO2 emission and the sustainability aspect. But let me get you 3 quick examples of a component, and I would also highlight one example of a system, because that shows also and demonstrates how important the system at the end really is.
Yeah.
So from the component perspective, I would say one, we have the most efficient hydraulic motor, especially for closed circuit application on the market, with an efficiency going up to 95-96%. So that is already top level what you can achieve here. We have, on the second perspective, we have also the valves, which you call independent metering in our product portfolio, which are significantly reducing in very specific application the throttling losses. And you can reduce the losses in the system compared to standard application by 20 to 45%. And please keep in mind, you can translate that also to a CO2 reduction of the component and the system here. So that gives us a good lever here in work function systems with those valves to reduce the CO2. And last but not least, I would also like to highlight our digital displacement pump. We call it the DDP pump, which is a very specific, very special innovative pump, also for open and closed circuit applications. And as that is a different principle than the typical axial piston pumps you are seeing on the market, that one comes with an efficiency advantage in the part load situation. So if you go full power and having an efficient system, that is a little bit simpler than if you have only part load on the system. Might it be because the pressure is lower than the rated pressure, speed is lower, you are half stroke or whatever, depending on what is defining a part load. But this specific pump is especially very high in part load conditions, and can also then compete with electric machines doing the work here. We have some very interesting projects going on and see already very enlightening results out of systems, putting the pump maybe in an excavator, and then we are able to also save up to 15% energy during the use of the excavator here. Again, that is also translating into 15% CO2 reduction out of the machine doing the same process. And on the similar level, I would like to highlight our best point control system, which is a system to operate a drivetrain, a hydrostatic drivetrain combined or consisting out of the diesel engine, the typical one, with a closed circuit pump and motor. And the goal really is that we operate the complete drivetrain in the optimal condition. So if you remember that we have already well-engineered products with a high efficiency, the level what you can do if you take everything into account and maybe sacrifice energy on one component or efficiency on one component to bring the complete thing in the optimal situation and condition, we can save in peak situations up to 25 or 30% of the energy used for the same activities compared to standard drivetrains. In average, I think realistically we have around 15% saving. And that is really important, and I would like to highlight it here. The system is really important when we want to achieve big levers. We have already well-designed components. Might it be the classic hydraulic components? Might it be the electrification, which is also coming up and being supplied by us here? Those are not new components. Hydraulic is existing since 100 years, electricity similarly. So those components have already cycles of optimization behind them. But if you want to really achieve the level where we also committed to as Danfoss Power Solutions and Danfoss as a complete group here, then the system is the lever, because the individual components do not leave enough room here. And the best point control, I think, is a good example where you can see that just because of changing the strategy to operate the system, we get an additional 15 to 25% out of the system.